There is no denying that the space sim genre has seen an impressive and much welcome revival over the past decades. Better technology and a certain nostalgia for past titles led to the creation of a plethora of new games that offer dozens, if not hundreds of hours of gameplay to anyone willing to appreciate their sandbox aspect. Hello everyone, and welcome to this channel. This is the Eradicator, and in this video, I will compare for you what I believe are the top 3 space sig games of the moment, both in scale and scope: Elite Dangerous, X4, and of course Star Citizen. We will talk about their respective universes, what players can do in those games, what game mechanics they include, their flight models, their graphics, and we will conclude by figuring out whose those games are for, and because you will see that they are actually quite different from one another, so here we go! We will start with Elite Dangerous here because it is the easiest to understand. Elite Dangerous takes place in the entire Milky Way galaxy, which is being simulated at a 1-to-1 scale, which is quite mind-boggling in itself. And according to data revealed by its developer Frontier, players have not even explored 0.1% of all of the game's star systems, which truly speaks volumes. However, most of the action takes place in 3 major zones: the so-called bubble, which is the main human space that revolves around Earth, itself divided into 3 different factions engaged in a passive-aggressive Cold War. The Pleiades, which is where an alien civilization known as the Thargoids starting launching attacks on humanity before moving to the bubble, and the Colonia sector, located about 22,000 light years away from the bubble, which is an attempt of humanity to start a presence far away from its cradle and possibly survive a total eradication from the bubble caused by the Thargoids. If it wasn't for these Thargoids, the game universe of Elite Dangerous would feel extremely realistic and believable to anyone fond of space exploration and astronomy, thanks to its thousands of real-life locations and star systems, all procedurally generated by Starforge, the algorithm used by Frontier to generate and manage the galaxy. While Elite Dangerous' lore aims more at acting as a background for the player's adventures, Star Citizen's lore is omnipresent and aims at guiding the player throughout the experience and adventures in the verse. Each location, each item has its own backstory, and one might argue to say that Cloud Imperium's lore team, led by Dave Haddock, did a tremendous job at creating a story for everything that happens to be present in the verse and that can be found, or that is going to be found in the verse. Because apart from our own solar system, which we won't be able to explore in the game anytime soon, everything is fictional and relates more to the space opera or fantasy genre than the actual space simulation, despite what the devs might be saying about that. More on that later. All of the game's solar systems are fictional, and there are going to be 6 major alien races in the game: humans, the Banu, the Terravins, the Xians, the Vandals, and the Krathak, all featuring distinct looks, technology, lore, and history, as well as languages. Yes, CIG went as far as hiring a linguist to create distinct languages for the game's alien races. How impressive is that? The X universe is, in my opinion, the most difficult to understand. It is set in a more distant future than Elite and Star Citizen, as several in-game decades appear to pass between games. For example, 40 years took place between X3 and X4. It revolves around a network of stargates that the game's various factions also don't seem to fully comprehend, as we could see in the game's recent lore history, which depicts a situation in which the gate ceased functioning for decades and then reopened to different destinations. On top of that, the 21-year-old series has had 5 games released and multiple expansions as well, which makes it difficult to catch up if you're interested to get started, which is why I recommend buying X3 as at a discounted price first, so that you can get used to the series gameplay a little bit and see if this is your cup of tea or not before jumping to X4. Elite Dangerous is pretty straightforward. You can only fly one ship at once, and then you are on your own, or maybe you can be with some friends to find out what opportunities the game has to offer. You can trade, explore, transport passengers, smuggle, be a pirate or a miner. Note that as of now, 5 years after the game's release, you still can't leave your ship and walk around, which is a pity after all this time and shows that the devs have not allocated much resources to further the development of the game. It is also worth noting that gameplay revolves a lot on upgrading your ship with the best components possible if you want it to be effective at anything else other than trade. The result is a tedious grind that can take dozens of hours and made a lot of players simply quit the game. Elite Dangerous features, however, the most realistic flight model, in my opinion, out of the 3 games, and combined here with a genuinely excellent VR compatibility, this can become a very addictive experience if you don't mind the repetitiveness. Graphic-wise, the game has largely been updated and still looks pretty good despite now being outmatched by Star Citizen, but we'll talk about it a bit later. Speaking of Star Citizen, which, after 7 years of actual development, is still at an early alpha stage, it is worth noting that the title offers functionalities that Elite Dangerous doesn't, despite still being at an early infancy stage. In Star Citizen, you can land on planets and moons with atmosphere. You can leave your ship, which has its entire interior rendered, grab a gun and assault a base in first-person mode. Star Citizen aims at making every object you can find interactable, has a survival type of gameplay in which you can die of hunger, thirst, cold, or heat. It features players-owned capital ships that you can helm or just work in as a gunner or a mere crewman. Every character is mocap animated, and it even features a very solid voice chat that bafflingly makes our voice sound quite realistic in the game. Despite the impressive list of features, Star Citizen is severely crippled by its slow technological progress. None of the required tech existed when Chris Roberts gradually announced the scope of the game between 2012 and 2014, and content often finds itself bottlenecked behind a key technological hurdle that takes longer than expected to be ready. As I am writing those lines, Star Citizen servers are really struggling to render the full scope of the current build, and we are waiting for a tech called Server Machine to enjoy more stability and a higher player cap, which is limited to 50 players per server only. Servers are something that X4 doesn't need to worry about, as it is a single-player game only. It is also fair to say that X4 is perhaps the game that differentiates itself the most from the 2 other titles by its gameplay. If Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen are about flying and immersion, X4 is about strategy and planning, while flying is secondary. The goal in X4 is to build your own empire within the game universe, and that is no easy task, as it requires hundreds of hours to build a merchant fleet that will then allow you to generate enough revenue to be able to build stations, which will then bring enough revenue to build a combat fleet that will allow you to claim sectors. This is gameplay that Frontier said was not interested in bringing to Elite Dangerous, and that will take years to bring such gameplay to Star Citizen, and yet it is already available in X4, which in my eyes makes it quite complementary to the other 2 games, as I am particularly fond of management games too. The most realistic and refined flight model, in my opinion, is the one featured in Elite Dangerous, which features a very accurate Newtonian physics approach. Here, no compromise was done to favor fun over realism. The devs decided to slap reality into the players' faces, like it or not. I thought that it was a bold choice, and it took me some time to get used to it, but in the end, I find it more logical, and I happen to be flying more accurately in Elite than in Star Citizen and X4. Star Citizen's flight model is closer to Elite's than X4 is. However, Chris Roberts, being a huge space opera fan, decided to take a few liberties to make space combat and especially dogfighting a little bit more dynamic and exciting. While I am personally satisfied with the current flight model, the same cannot be said about a vocal part of the community which seems to prefer it slower and more realistic. Note that, as often with Star Citizen, the flight model is very much a work in progress, and that several changes are to be expected, such as the reintroduction of VTOL flight and a more dynamic atmospherical flight model. X4, however, while also featuring 6 degrees of freedom and Newtonian physics, doesn't seem to focus on the flight experience so much, which, in comparison to the other two titles, feels a little simplistic. Again, this can be explained by the simple fact that the title is not a pure space flight simulator, but a strategy game disguised as a space simulator. If you bought X4 to fly ships in a believable fashion, then you bought the wrong game. Elite Dangerous's graphics were pretty mind-boggling when the title was released in 2014, but now seem to have aged and sometimes pale in comparison to Star Citizen's and even X4's on some occasion. The graphics regularly get updates, but we are still waiting for the ones that will allow us to explore gas giants or atmospherical planets. Even the Ice Planets update, teased several years ago, has not come yet. The reason I mention this is because I really believe that these are changes required to take the title to another level, Star Citizen's level. Star Citizen, on the other hand, has always focused on the quality of its graphics since its announcement video in 2012. The game often features photorealistic environments and is often dubbed as being a wallpaper simulator. Of course, this comes with a heavy price and you will need a very solid rig if you want to run it in Ultra, and that won't even guarantee 30 frames per second as the game is still unoptimized and new technologies regularly get implemented. For example, by the end of this quarter, you will see new oceanic shaders and height improvements that will make planets even more realistic. On the other end of the spectrum, it's fair to say that X4 was quite ugly compared to the other two titles when it was released. Sure, it looks better now, and I think that space environments look better than Elite's. However, station interiors are still very lackluster, and NPC character models still look very outdated. Nevertheless, they are here, and their mere presence adds a sense of immersion that I think Elite Dangerous seriously lacks. The more I've played X4, the more I've realized how important and fun a solid background simulation can be in a space simulation game. In X4, the entire universe does its biddings regardless of your actions or your presence. NPCs trade, build, engage in battles, scout or mine, and contribute to the game's economy, and it's happening right in front of your very eyes. You can enter a system and jump straight into a large-scale battle between two factions. You may have a meeting with an NPC at the station and all of a sudden, part of the station blows up because it had fallen under attack in the meanwhile. The background simulation is, in my eyes, X4's strongest feature, and it definitely plays a large role in its replayability. I just can't get enough of such unpredictability. It's just really fun. Elite Dangerous also features a background simulation, but of course the main difference between Elite and X4 simulation is that Elite simulation is that of an online game, which is far more technically demanding than a solo games. This is probably why battles are rare and usually displayed in specific war zones, as it probably is easier to run them that way. Just like in X4, NPCs go about their business, they trade, they mine, they pirate, and they generate missions, the only difference being that it's not as in your face as in X4, which makes it less fun in my opinion. Star Citizen, however, doesn't have any background simulation yet. A system called Quantum is under development and will probably be a mix of what Elite and X4 have to offer, but that is pure speculation, as at this stage we still need to have new server tech like the iCache to get this running, so we won't see that anytime soon. So, in the end, who are those games for? Well, I'll start with X4 here, and I think that if you like management games, but you're also fond of space games, either strategy games like Stellaris or spaceflight games, then this might be a game that you could enjoy. The X series is a series that I personally failed to understand until I finally took the time to get invested in the games and finally understand their potential. And once you do, some of the more off-putting graphical details no longer even are an issue because it's not the point. If you see it as a first-person strategy and management game, which is a very rare genre, the game shines under a totally different light and offers a unique experience. I have personally been looking for such an experience for a very long time in a space game, which is why I really enjoy playing X4 right now. Elite Dangerous, on the other hand, falls on the other side of the spectrum. In Elite, you are just a simple person trying to make their way into the universe. It's you, your ship, and eventually one NPC crew and a few friends. You are no faction leader, you are no admiral, you are just the commander of your own ship, and whatever you'll do in the game is up to you. Out of all of the 3 games here, Elite has the most advanced mining and exploring mechanics and perhaps the most realistic and believable flight mechanics. So, if you are into exploring or precision flight, this might be the game you're looking for. And finally, there is Star Citizen. To me, Star Citizen, despite being an unfinished, still in active development game, is the most impressive of them all. It really makes you believe that you are a part of a living, breathing universe. Just like the other 2 games, you are not limited to a particular activity. In fact, it is that potential, elusive, limitless experience that allows so many players and that attracts so many players, and the open nature of the game's development that gives backers a unique perspective in the gaming world as we get to witness the project grow year after year. I have been a supporter of the project since 2012 and I have never regretted it. And that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this content, please consider giving it a like or subscribing to this channel. Also, a big shout out to Ari for becoming my latest Patreon. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys tomorrow for another video. Take care, everyone. This is the Eradicator. I am signing out.